I'm not a huge fan of the Wii, largely because sitting around on my sofa flapping my arms around isn't my idea of entertainment, although it does make some games, such as the brightly coloured Cooking Mama here, accessible to newcomers, because you're performing actions rather than jabbing a complex array of buttons.
Of course, the next step is to remove the buttons and controllers completely.
Witness Project NATAL from Microsoft, in which the controller is you.
Here we see the outright creepy promotional video for Project NATAL, in which it seems you have to sort of groom a boy called Milo.
Hiya Milo, how you doing?
Hi Claire, you okay?
Actually, I'm a bit nervous.
You? Nervous? I don't believe it.
Presumably instead of a high score table there's some sort of offenders register.
You've got to put these goggles on.
Goggles?
As computers and consoles grow ever more powerful and the games market grows ever more diverse, so there's an increasing number of games that fit about 10 categories at once or none. For instance, how do you define the bizarre wind-em-up flower in which you control a breeze blowing petals around? Or the serene safari photography game AFRIKA? There are countless pacifist titles out there, but the broadcast media tends to ignore them in favour of highlighting more violent fare.
Whenever any new technology comes along, it inevitably causes controversy.
Once upon a time, TV was the bogeyman as adults fretted over its negative influence on the kiddywink generation.
We teachers feel that television is bad for children.
Despite being a less sedentary and arguably more challenging pastime than television, video games have been demonised more than the Gogglebox ever was.
Of course, even some early games were asking for it, such as the ghoulish arcade game Death Race, in which you had to squish people to survive.
It caused an outcry in America, although the visuals were so basic, the actual cabinet was more grisly than the game itself. Here's a rare example of an early commercial controversial game, Beat 'em and Eat 'em on the Atari 2600, in which you control two naked women there at the bottom of the screen. You have to move them left and right to swallow semen being ejaculated by a man on the roof. It's basically just simulating an average Saturday night in Plymouth.
Explicitly adult games tended to be flogged in small ads in the back of computer mags or illicitly swapped around on pirated tapes, but they did exist.
Take this charming Portuguese game, Sex Crime, on the ZX Spectrum, in which you play a man who has to run around a hospital having sex with women in comas without getting caught. It's all right, it's not as good as the real thing, obviously.
These early nasty games tended to look so basic they were more like tasteless scribbles than anything else, the equivalent of a knob scrawled on an exercise book.
They were largely ignored, partly because they were dreadful and partly because it was just widely accepted that adults were using home computers and playing games, not just kids.
But by the 90s, something had changed. The graphics had improved for one thing, and the success of Mario and Sonic meant that games were largely perceived by the rest of the media as being children's toys.
Consequently, if anything even vaguely grown up reared its head in video game form, it could only be processed as a terrible threat to our youth.
MPs have criticised the makers of a new video computer game after a report said it featured the mutilation of women. One MP said it shouldn't be sold in this country because it would have a bad effect on children.
One sequence in Night Trap in particular, in which a girl is stalked and seized by ghoulish figures, then put in a metal clamp around her neck and dragged off screaming, has provoked a hostile reaction.
Despite the hostile reaction, Night Trap was actually a fairly daft and broad horror movie spoof in which you played a CCTV operator trying to spring traps and save women from some stupid alien intruders in masks.
What it undoubtedly wasn't was an educational tool aimed at teaching children to maim and to murder and to mutilate. Only an idiot could possibly think that it was.
It's absolutely outrageous to teach children to maim and to murder and to mutilate in the way that this video undoubtedly does.
Video games are turning many young people into addicts and making them aggressive, according to a new report.
I think that it does change behaviour a lot. Because, like, if your mum said to you, you've got to do homework, I'd say, no, I'm playing my Game Boy, wait till I finish my game or something.
Yeah, of course, in the old days when everyone played with, I don't know, wooden pegs, kids couldn't wait to do their homework. Still, at least video games weren't, I don't know, sending out subliminal messages that you could condemn as manipulative and sinister.
A computer game that sends out subliminal messages has been condemned as manipulative and sinister.
This is the game that's causing alarm among parents.
Really? Really, is it?
What they're trying to do is to affect the child's mind beneath the level of consciousness, and that seems to me an immoral thing to do.
The computer game showing children at school being shot at has been on sale in Britain.
Oh no, what sick horror is this?
Violent computer games are nothing new, but this one is more shocking than most.
Not really, it's obviously a deliberately jokey and tasteless shareware game, the sort of thing that, I don't know, might be flogged out the back of a computer magazine for 50p. But don't ask me, ask someone who'll be horrified by these reports.
I'm horrified by these reports.
It's amazing he can stand still while his knee's jerking like that.
Throughout this period, games couldn't do anything right.
Although, to be fair, when journalists do interview games players themselves, they don't do the pastime any favours.
That's the whole point of games, is to be realistic, but not be realistic at the same time. So you can kill people, but not think about it in the morning.
Horrified, uncomprehending adults claim that this obsessional solitary vice is producing a generation of teenage mutants suffering from a form of cultural autism.
Children get so hooked that beating their last high score is all that matters.
And my little cousin, bro, every time I go in his house, he's playing the game. He thinks he's the man on Streets of Rage. Every minute he's beating me up, bro, and he's saying, yeah. And then all this...
Another inarticulate gamer. Why can't they ask someone, I don't know, a bit more middle class?
As well as playing about 2 hours a day, Matthew has also managed to pass grade 3 piano, and he claims to enjoy a bit of Dickens. He seems the perfect, well-rounded ambassador for the games he plays.
Oh, he's only about 2, but who knows? Maybe he'll say something cute.
A beat 'em up is a game when where you beat people up. You punch them or kick them and jump on them, break their necks, smash them over the head with bottles.
Beat 'em up, simulated combat game in which the player leathers the stuffing out of people.
Now, beat-em-ups may look like a simple exercise in just knocking the shit out of someone, but actually they're at least 4% more complicated than that. Physically harming your fellow man has been a staple feature of video games since before they could adequately portray the brutal reality of unarmed combat. To an onlooker, an over-the-top, bloodthirsty beat-em-up such as Mortal Kombat here might seem unnecessarily violent. That's because it is.
Johnny Cage wins. Anyway, after being picked on for years, it was only a matter of time before the games industry started living down to expectations and released a slew of titles that were gleefully offensive.
Grand Theft Auto is a game in which contestants can rise through the underworld by performing jobs for gangster godfathers. Points are awarded for murder, arson and drug running.
Yes, the granddaddy of all controversial games is a British creation directly inspired by the pioneering Spectrum game Turbo Esprit. The release of the first GTA game at the height of media hand-wringing over joyriding ensured plenty of coverage and even caught the attention of the Home Office.
Under proposals being considered by the Home Office, a health warning would be flashed up on the screen at the start, reminding players not to drive like this on the roads.
The freedom to do what thou wilt in GTA's virtual environment sent the popularity of a fledgling genre into overdrive.
Sandbox or open world game, a game in which the player is left free to explore a virtual world in non-linear fashion.
Sandbox games are massive modern play sets, basically, huge environments in which you can do what you like. They started back in the day with the epic space exploration and trading simulation Elite. Elite gave the impression of containing an entire functioning universe, but actually that was an illusion. Computers weren't that powerful back then. Instead, the thousands of planets and solar systems the player could explore were generated by a clever series of algorithms. Modern computers really are powerful enough to contain complete worlds, as in the nihilistic, almost overpoweringly detailed Grand Theft Auto series. GTA's Liberty City is a living city filled with working roads and buildings and bridges and rivers. It has its own transport system and police force. It's got radio and TV stations. It plays host to thousands of independent citizens driving thousands of vehicles, or strutting the pavements, or getting run over, or innocently driving their taxis into the gun sights of a maniac who shoots them rather unfairly in the head, then sits waiting in case there's a passenger who panics and get out. Yeah, hang on, wait a minute. Yeah, there she is. And then he picks her off as well.
As you can see,